You're listening to the Cambridge Insider Podcast. On today's episode, hosts Stephen and Mariah wrap up the 2023 year and look ahead into 2024. This episode is sponsored by Lawrence Woodmere Academy. LWA, located just 18 miles from New York City, is an elite co-educational, non-religious, elite private college preparatory school. The school culture is marked by a commitment to global perspective within a school community that is racially, ethnically, and socially economically diverse. Thanks for listening.
Cambridge Insider Podcast time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cambridge Insider Podcast. This is the final episode of the season. Mariah Thompson, how do you feel about that?
I feel it's crazy. I feel like time flies. But just this morning, for those who are familiar with anything about Spotify, we obviously post our podcast on Spotify too, depending on what platform you listen to. But Spotify does like a wrapped year. I usually do it for people's like what they listen to, but they do it for podcasts too. So this morning I looked at our wrap and it was crazy. There was like 15 countries. Listeners from 15 countries listen to our podcast.
I love that.
Yeah. So
does that officially make us global?
Oh yeah, we've been global. But 15 countries feels like global.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I was in a meeting yesterday with a long-standing school partner of ours, and they mentioned that they really enjoyed the previous episode that we'd done that spoke a little bit about our trip to Vietnam, Korea, and China. So they said that it was they lived vicariously through us when we mentioned of the foods and some of the great people that we've met. So it was nice to hear that we've got some partners that are excited about the pod as well.
That's sweet. So yeah, shout out to our listeners for having a great year with us for sure.
Exactly. So just a quick recap in terms of this is the final episode of the season. Mm-hmm. When are we kicking things off again in the new year?
Well, yeah, we'll let the new year flow in. We know everyone takes their holiday break, and then coming back to the school year is always crazy too. So probably by the end of January, we'll have another episode that will get us in gear, ready for 2024. Just kind of explaining where everything's at. But we're gonna do that today too, just to we're gonna end well. Recap a little bit, but end well so you can gear up of like, okay, I need to get my mind rolling. So with that being said, Stephen, do you want to just jump into letting us all know like where the market is at right now when it comes to international student recruitment?
Yeah, absolutely. Such a pertinent question, right? I hear it on a daily basis when we're interacting with our school partners and potential school partners is like, where's the market? And I think it's good news. I think all of the big three markets, I call them the big three that we work in, China, Vietnam, and Korea, we're seeing that pick up again. We've overcome all the challenges from COVID. We really are not seeing any restrictions on the market from that perspective. And we are seeing gaining in momentum in the number of students that are interested, the number of apps that we're seeing month on month. We are really matching pre-pandemic levels, which is excellent. So I think that's good news. All schools that are, that have an international program, that are excited and interested in an international program should really, really be excited about that news, because it's something that we've worked hard towards. I know we went through some dark times, but it's very positive to hear that. In saying that, I always put this sort of precautionary little note in there, is to remember that this is not a 2016, 2017 market. It remains a super competitive market. It also remains a market that is firmly situated in that digital space. So, the traditional market was very much in person, was very much agency based, was very much, I want to say a paper model where you could take a pamphlet, put it in somebody's hand, and that would be enough. It really, really has transitioned into a digital market. So schools that are out there, take the good news of the fact that the market's back, people are interested, but how are you reaching those interested people? You've got to start having conversations internally and with Cambridge and with, some advisors of yours about the digital space. Are you in the digital space? How are you represented? How are people viewing the content that you're putting out there? Because that really is how people find your school and find your program is through that digital space. The final thing that I will say is that China remains, the biggest sender of students at the F1 high school level. That's important to remember. They remain a really big, strong player. I think geopolitically, we've seen tensions calm down between China and the US, and that's good news for the market, because when things are calm there, we sort of see the regular coming and going of the market and the exchange of students, which is excellent. Vietnam and Korea, which were markets that were probably, in the context of things, steadfast through those end of pandemic times where China struggled a little bit. They continue to be good secondary markets, and by secondary I mean they simply just aren't as many in terms of the number of students. They remain very price sensitive. Specifically last year in Vietnam in particular, but also to an extent in Korea, we saw the huge impact of a strong dollar on the number of students that were coming in. So, to give you an example, $10,000 as a price was no longer $10,000 in Vietnam and in Korea because of the strong dollar. That meant that in the local currency, those families were just paying an inflated price. So we've seen the dollar come down, which is good news again, because we want to get to a place where $10,000 represents $10,000, right? And I don't want to get too technical because it can get a little mindy there. But so we've seen that strong dollar come down, and that's good news for the Vietnam and Korea markets as well, because I know so many schools in the last couple of months since this enrollment season has kicked off has had the conversation with me about how do we expand into Vietnam and Korea? What price is the right price to put out there? So that's exciting for those markets. It's exciting that people are willing to discount their tuition, are willing to really expand and get into those markets, which is excellent.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you're like, this is confusing, the dollar stuff, this is why you have us. We understand it. We understand it. Stephen understands it, and he will best guide on prices and how we will function with your program. So the good news is that you're not alone in the confusion, and you have people like us that can get through it. And we're prepared. We understand it. We've been doing this for a while. So that is the good news of partnership, is that what sounds confusing probably isn't confusing to the other person. So it's all good stuff. Because even I'm sitting here like, I understand what you're saying. I mean, I do the marketing side of stuff, so I don't have to make decisions on that stuff. You do. And so I'm like, well, I'm glad Stephen knows.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly it.
If you have questions, if anything was unclear or you want to expand a little bit on those conversations, reach out, right? That's why we're here. We're happy to just have a conversation. It doesn't have to mean more than just a conversation. We're passionate about the industry, and we want to help as much as we possibly can to give people our perspective and to guide them through these changing times. So if you want to talk digital, you want to talk strong dollars, or you want to talk price points, that's why we're here.
Yeah, totally. Stephen, so that is 2023. We're moving in 2024. What can our schools and our maybe some future schools that are listening, what can they expect in this upcoming year?
Absolutely. So, I think most schools that we work with know this, and some schools that we potentially will work with might not know this. But we are sort of heading after the New Year's, typically when the peak fall enrollment season picks up. We work with a couple of spring enrollments during those first couple of weeks, but then we really head into that fall enrollment season, then the peak fall enrollment season. It has pushed later and later, meaning that it used to be really end of January, sort of end of March, where we saw a lot of those applicants come through. Because of the competitiveness of the market, because of the fact that students have more choices and are not under so much pressure to have to make a school decision, we've really seen the majority of students make later decisions, apply later in the year. Our advice is keep a rolling admission season if you can. If you can't keep a rolling admission season for international students, push it as late as you possibly can. But really, anytime after the new year kicks off, we really should see an uptick in the number of applicants. That's great news. So really prepare yourself for that. Prepare your administrative staff. Be sure to be super responsive on interviews and on decisions and on getting decisions to students, because those small little things do matter when students are making decisions. They want to feel heard. They want to feel respected. They want to feel as if their decision and their student decision is taken to heart by a school program. So that's one of the ways you can translate that. The other great thing, and this is super exciting as well, is given the success, and we spoke a little bit about this in the previous episode, but given the success of our, October fall, trips to China, Vietnam, and Korea, we have just kicked off planning for a recruitment trip Specifically to China, we might still do Vietnam and Korea if there's interest, but specifically to China in the spring. So sort of end of February, beginning of March. We are working with several of our Cambridge Enhanced Marketing partners to get them abroad and get them there in person. So that's just super exciting that we sort of predicted this, but you always go into it hoping that the trips would be a huge success and that our schools and our Cambridge staff would be so well received there, and they absolutely were. You know, these are requests that are coming in from families, from sales team members, from agencies saying, bring us more schools, get people here in person. So that's just exciting. It's a big part of what we do. You know, we have this great digital footprint, but a big part of closing that loop, I always say, is getting people there in person. If we can brand a school, if we can market a school, if we can create great content that people in China, Vietnam, and Korea can see, getting a person there a couple months later in person is like that wow moment. Hey, this is the person that might be, you know, my head of school, or this is the person that might be I might be working with when I'm there in person on campus. So we're excited about those trips again, and as we kick off the peak enrollment season, it'll be good timing to get schools there sort of in the spring. So we're very, very excited about that.
Yeah, if you're curious about the trips, I'll post in the show notes in the description. I just posted on YouTube a video of one of our schools that attended this past fall trip, and it's like a real good marketing glimpse into what happened. It's with York School. So I'll put that in the show notes so you guys can take a look that what is the fruit of going on these trips? What's that look like?
Absolutely. And whether you've been before or you haven't been at all, you know, it really is an important thing. It's an eye opener, and it's a great way to brand yourself and to chat to potential families and students as well. Mariah, I feel like you've asked all the questions, which puts me in a very, I'm not used to being just the, you know, I don't just want to answer. I like asking questions. So I'm going to spin things around just as we close off today. Anything from your side that you sort of, as the last episode of the season, I think we've had a great season. Anything from your side that you want to alert our faithful listeners to?
Yeah, just two things. Coming up in January, probably we're nailing down the date, but it'll be at the end of January. Look out for an invite for our Connecting Communities event. It's going to be it's still going to be tailored for everyone, but it's going to be a little bit more school side heavy. So I encourage all our school officials to just save the date when we put it out and really try to attend that event. It'll be fun and exciting and encouraging coming up into this next peak season for sure. And then lastly, for also schools, just continue to be on the lookout for your host recruitment managers. They are very excited to support you guys. So just keep on the lookout for how they are thinking of new ways to support your programs, because at the end of the day, when you have a healthy host pool, you're going to have a healthy program. So I definitely just encourage you guys, as well as preparing for the season coming up 2024, that host recruitment is sitting in the forefront of your mind as well.
Absolutely. Well said. I couldn't have said it better. We did a nice little episode a couple of weeks ago, correct me if I'm wrong, that explored a little bit about, you know, our hosts and how important they are. So and how important those communities are for schools. So, you know, that's certainly a focus of ours as well. To all of our listeners, we signed off on the season. What is the season 3, season 4?
Now you have me guessing myself, but I'm pretty sure it's season 4. It's
season 4. All right, I'm going to go with Mariah in season 4. Signing off for season 4. Remember to like, to listen, to subscribe, to share the podcast. If you have any questions, you know, there are contact details up on the show notes as well. We will catch you in 2024. Have a happy, festive Christmas, New Year celebration time. Spend some time with families. We'll see you in the new year. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Cambridge Insider Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to never miss an episode. For more Cambridge updates, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Have a great week and stay connected.